Have you ever met someone who told you to do yoga or go for a walk when you felt depressed? Have you ever been told that you're being very negative and you need to be more positive? Do you know any stupid misogynists or toxic masculinity promoters with their conservative views? Well, here's the thing, shaming toxic people out of their beliefs doesn't work. Let's get into that. First things first, obviously, going for a walk, exercising, doing yoga, eating healthy, waking early. None of these are actually bad things. These are all good things promoted by psychiatrists, psychologists, counselors, therapists everywhere. These are good for our minds. Toxic, positive, good vibes only people are bad or toxic in the sense of their behaviors. When someone invalidates my problems and gives me some advice, which is yes, technically good, because I was invalidated in the first place, my brain just goes, did you just invalidate my problem? I'm going to invalidate your solution, you toxic piece of shit. I can change this video and make this video about how toxic people are bad. You know, it's really easy to call out the toxic culture. They are bad, they are invalidating, they are inconsiderate. All of which is true, but A, it doesn't change the fact that they're invalidating and inconsiderate, and B, we become inconsiderate and invalidating in doing so. You are being very inconsiderate, dude. You should be more considerate. You know what that sounds like? Dude, you are being sad. Just don't be sad. Hey, I just see the parallel here. That's it. It's our job to differentiate and understand the toxic part and the good part. Although, yeah, it's true. If people were considerate and understanding and compassionate, it's not the world we live in. We can go on and on about how the world should be, but it will make us forget what the world is right now and how we can make the world better right now. It's just a meme, I get it, but when I try to think about it in detail, I realize I'm much more toxic to myself than I am to toxic culture. Because I, being a human, did associate the good advice with the toxic people and made the good advice bad. For 5-6 years of my life, I have had the worst episodes of depression, and it included me not working out, me staying in my bed all the time, being very lazy, eating very unhealthy things, being very much self-centered and being the victim of the world. I was on meds, borderline personality disorder. My psychiatrist did tell me to start exercising and get into a routine or get into a discipline, and obviously I didn't because it was toxic of him to tell me what to do. I had emotional breakdowns almost regularly. I stopped taking meds. I started to work out a little just at home, 30 minutes yoga, cardio, just trying to sweat and release the dopamine in my brain. I tried to get into a discipline and a routine, and I took therapy. I still have depression. I still take few days off from exercising. I still have days when I eat unhealthy. I still have even weeks when I don't want to get out of my bed. I still have weeks when I don't get out of my bed and I don't want to do anything. Doing these activities, it's not gonna solve anyone's problem. It did not solve my problem, but I consider them to be more of a non-destructive alternative to my destructive behaviors. It's just a way to distract myself from the problems which I get to work on the side. If this is my problem and this is causing me like existential dread, I'm gonna put it aside for some time and I'm gonna do something like exercise, which I know how to do. It's a routine, I can do it, I have the dopamine release, I feel relaxed, I feel confident, I feel motivated to get back and solve this problem. And when I think about it, no one actually said that doing these exercises are going to solve my problems. My psychiatrist did not say that these are going to solve my problems. I assumed that. By the way, I do not believe the whole if you're sad, don't be sad, try to see the silver lining, try to be happy. I don't think all that is toxic positivity necessarily. I'd consider it to be human. If someone doesn't want to talk about someone's pain, I understand why they wouldn't want to. The behavior might be toxic, but the reasoning is understandable. And if being human means being flawed and imperfect, I'd say not wanting to talk about sad stuff does count as an imperfection. And calling that out in a way is quite similar to calling out someone's insecurities and imperfections. I've been both the victim and the victimizer of toxic behaviors, and I doubt that any one person has not. The 4 steps that causes polarization in a conversation, and toxic culture has to be one of the consequences of that. What we think, what and how we say, how the other person hears and how the other person interprets. It's actually quite more complicated in actuality, where A person says and B listens and understands and interprets and personalizes and advises based on the personalization and speaks in a certain way. Then A again listens and interprets and understands, and it's our conversations are actually much more complicated than we make them to be, or at least they can be complicated. There's a lot of assumptions going in having a conversation, and it's absolutely normal, unless of course the other person says something wrong and you get offended and you cancel them, because the progressive way. If I'm progressive, I'm gonna be compassionate to them and understand where they're coming from, so I can maybe show them a way that compassion transcends one's opinions and help them see and come into the progressive way. If compassion and empathy is a virtue of progressive ideology, we don't realize that the progressive ideology has very little compassion and empathy for others who don't have progressive ideology. Because are you really being progressive for calling out the conservative for being compassionless while being compassionless? Progressive ideology has a lot more toxicity than it realizes. That includes me as well, we have a lot of toxic qualities that we haven't realized yet. Being human means being flawed, being imperfect, and hypocrisy is way more common when feelings are involved. And feelings are something that's a bit complicated in this context, because for the sake of justifying our feelings, we might end up amplifying or exaggerating or creating a narrative based on our feelings, which we need to validate. We make these antagonists who are highly opinionated and wrong, and we call them out and play the victim, which we are. But it doesn't lead anywhere. All it does is get you more views and more reach on Instagram and Reels, and get more sympathy, and people validate your feelings. That's not changing the world. That's not changing the fact that people are still inconsiderate outside of the social media. And sympathy and validation and views and reach and all that, it's not something that's bad. It's something of a necessity we have. But the change doesn't happen as we think. That's what I'm trying to say. Some examples of such villains are the aunties who talk to women and in their mid-20s saying, when are you getting married? Or people who questions a woman's character based on how she's dressed, or the people who talk about masculinity being not crying or being a certain way, or the old people talking about the young as snowflakes, or people who provide positive advices while being invalidating, or my favorite, people who talk shit about other people. Who has two thumbs and does that? It's all one big circle. We all want others to understand our perspective. The perspective itself might be different, but our loyalty to, attack each other, name calling, snowflake, okay boomer, that's quite common. This whole social media ideology of calling out behaviors is the same behaviors as the behaviors that are being called out. What I'm trying to say is shaming someone to change their behaviors doesn't work. Just period. It doesn't work. For a person who doesn't know how to empathize, you can't just tell them to empathize and they'll just do that. You have to realize that this person might have grown their entire life not realizing these things exist outside of their little comfort zone. And when they say something stupid, like admittedly stupid, understand that they are also on a journey and still learning and growing. They are at a place where you might have been 5 or 10 years ago. 5 years ago, I thought that trans people were unnatural and wrong and all the bad things. I wasn't shamed out of that. I just did more research. I learned, I understood new things. I was following the awareness of the whole topic. You don't need to shame people to raise awareness. If someone was to call me out back then in a hostile manner, I would have gotten more defensive and I would have invalidated trans people even more today. When you call out someone, you are implying that they are wrong. Considering they are wrong, if they are wrong, is shaming them and calling them out where they'll get defensive. Is that really the best way to do it? Would you like to be called out and shamed for having certain views? How quickly do we become invalidating of others' opinions? Horrible opinions, yes, but without realizing where they are coming from. They were born and raised in this tiny little bubble of their own comfort zone, where all they ever saw was these things being played out in their life, where women work in kitchen and men don't cry and all these things. And when they get out of that, into the progressive world, this whole paradigm shift of their entire life, where they were told something their entire life, and the world doesn't work that way. As the world, it's our job to be more compassionate for helping them transition from that little small bubble of their lives into the progressive world, not shame them for being born in a place and time of misogyny and toxic masculinity and emotional damage. And that being said, my word against me, you can do that. You can get angry, you can get offended, you can call people out for being different. And it's all valid. We can point fingers. It's not some rule that we can't do that. We can invalidate people because that's a normal human thing, because humans are flawed and imperfect. Learning that and trying to grow from that instead of pretending we are woke, it's not gonna work. We have a choice. We can do either of things. We can be imperfect and call people out. That's okay, but we can also be compassionate, which I believe in more, and try to help people grow into something better. Censoring someone who is promoting toxic masculinity or misogyny and like toxic positivity, whatever. I might be repeating myself, but expecting someone to be understanding of the world and being more considerate when they don't know how to is the same as telling a sad person to not be sad. Who is the toxic person here? Everyone's toxic. Nothing matters. The point of negative things, whether it be our own emotions or our own actions or behaviors or the world's emotions, actions, behaviors, traditions, whatever, the point of negative things isn't to suppress. That's what toxic positivity is for. The point is to acknowledge the negative and try to find a way, try to work out a way which is healthy and productive and helps us move forward in life. Hope I was relatively concise and had some clarity in this video. If I wasn't, please let me know what your perspective is. This whole video is just me trying to explain we should be more compassionate to others, regardless how offensive they might be. We don't have to agree with them. I'm not saying that, but we can still be compassionate. Please subscribe and comment down below what you thought about this. Please like this video and share it with your friends. And I'll see you in the next one. Hope you have a good day.